Talk, and I'm here tonight with Robert and Sheldon. We had an interesting day.
Yeah, we sure did, Jordan. Hi there, Robert. Good to see you.
Good to see you
The
too.
throne speech was entirely what we expected it to be. Basically, the Liberals have declared war on the firearms owning community in Canada. They say they're going to give cities the power to ban handguns. They say that they're going to ban military-style assault weapons, whatever that means. A whole bunch of terms that make no sense to anybody. But what they're basically saying is they're going to go after stuff that they think that civilians shouldn't have, and it's offensive. It's outrageous, and I can tell you, there's a whole bunch of people out there who I know are not going to give them anything. And I think that what they're going to do here is they're basically going to just incite the flames of these separatist groups. They're going to incite the flames of people who ordinarily wouldn't have paid much attention to this, who just like to go to the range, go shooting, and have a bit of fun, and all of a sudden are finding themselves the subject of the throne speech. It's outrageous. What do you think, Robert?
I think the same. I missed much of the hoopla today. Just heard a bit on RD, but just being at work all day. But yes, it's exactly what we expected. Oh, and just by a coincidence, I printed off that, if you don't mind me saying that, information you're talking about out of BC, and it's, as you say, it's mostly a solution looking for a non-existent problem. There may be two things that are good in it as far as pre-intervention programs and maybe teaching kids core and responsibility, but that's it.
Yeah, you're talking about the BC Firearms Task Force report from about 2 years ago that came out and made a number of recommendations, which largely wants to ape what Quebec has done with Bill 9. They're talking about doing a bunch of that, and I'm very concerned that they'll try to implement a bunch of these particular suggestions from that report. But I think we should probably concentrate on the throne speech, and I think what we need to be doing here, and I think what our members and firearms owners across the country need to be doing, is talking to their local elected representatives of whatever political party they are, and telling them that this is an issue that's important to them, and they, regardless of how involved they were politically before, they're going to be politically involved now, and they're going to be being very, very angry about this when we get an election, and there will be an election sooner rather than later. I'm convinced of it. How about Charlie? Nice to see you joining us. So tell us about the throne speech. You were there today. Can you hear me, Charlie? Okay.
I don't think Charles can hear us.
Okay. Okay. Well, if Charles can talk and be heard, he should tell us about the throne speech. I can hear you, Charlie. I can hear you. Tell us about the speech.
It must be that hotel Wi-Fi that he's on.
Could be. Well, anyway, Charles was there. He's fixing it up. Anyway, we'll get back. We'll get Charlie on here in a sec.
I'll send him a message.
Yeah, Charles is in Ottawa today, so
he was in Ottawa. He's in Montreal now. He's got to do an interview there with our media. They're right in the belly of the beast, so to speak. And he's going to be going to the commemorative ceremony at Polytechnique.
Yes, I've been to a few of those.
Yeah.
One quick note, Sheldon, I just want to jump on it. It reminds me of an email you sent me recently, which we know about, but just the reminder that we're giving people the tools to help themselves, because we need people to really stand up, as this will be a numbers game.
Oh, it very much is a numbers game. Charlie, we got you back?
Yeah, technical difficulties have been fixed up now, so we're good.
Excellent. So tell us about the throne speech today. Yeah, well, you were there.
I was. And as we discussed before, it's not quite the same watching it on video. It's when you're doing it on a screen or something like that, it's very surreal. But when you're actually there, you see the nuances of the people and the social interaction that goes on there. And frankly, it was exciting, a little bizarre. I started off this morning in Ottawa with the opening of Parliament, the 43rd Parliament. And thank you, MP Gladu, for getting me a gallery pass to get in there and take a look at that firsthand. I happened to get a seat right in the middle of the show. I was in the second row overlooking the Conservative bloc and the NDP side. And I recognized many of our friends in there. They nodded to me. Andrew Scheer gave me a thumbs up here. Paloro, he gave me a thumbs up. Of course, MP Gladu did as well too, and a number of other ones as well too. On the Liberal side, there's a few that I know there as well too, and they didn't give me a thumbs up. They more or less sneered at me, but that's okay. They still recognize me for being there, and that's fine. That was the whole idea, was to make a presence there and make sure that they know that we are there, right?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and as much as the opposition will hold them account, we will hold everybody account for what they're doing to us. So unfortunately, I watched the whole proceedings, and they talked about, cooperation, and Trudeau was lamenting on about, cooperating with more or less his agenda. He's hoping that that would happen. And so when it went the way it usually goes. I was hoping to bump into a couple of the MPs afterwards. Unfortunately, they were whisked out some other way and cloistered into an area I didn't have access to, so I couldn't talk to anybody there. Although I had some interesting chats with some people in the gallery. There was MP assistants there that I talked up in terms of the gun control side, and they're very interested. There were some people there from the Conservative National Committee as well too that I talked to as well too, and I think we may have some leads on some Manitoba directors. Anyway, that's another story. But so around 1 o'clock, 1:30, they finished up, and I made a beeline over to the Senate. And once again, Marilyn Gladu's office supplied me with a pass, a gallery pass again, and I got in to see that live. I was right over top of the throne, watched the entire proceedings. And just so you know, I couldn't record anything there. Security is that you have to surrender everything: notepads, pens, anything that can record, the event. You can have that on your presence. It was interesting though, because people in the crowd, namely the senators and everybody else that was down on the main floor, they were calling each other and they were texting and everything else. So I don't understand the prohibition, but nevertheless, I observed, and then of course it came time for the throne speech, and they talked about, they kind of prefaced it at the very beginning with an intro saying that this government was going to, concentrate on making things safe, and I'm going, okay, here it comes. And then later on, they got into more detail, and we know what that is now. So they want to ban military-style assault rifles, whatever that means. And I don't think they know what that means. And I think they've designed it like that so that it's a broad brush thing that'll encompass a lot of different things. And of course, they're going to give somehow they're going to give the cities leeway to enact their own handgun bans and other gun restrictions as they feel fit. Anyway, that all went. I was huffing and puffing through the same thing, and frankly, I was almost spitting bullets at the end of it all. Very exasperating. Despite all the work that we do to try to educate these people, we give them empirical evidence. They ignore it. We show them up front. There's models across the world that show that what they're planning doesn't do anything except waste valuable resources and leave people less safe. Anyway, I'm preaching to the converted. Right after this,
but
right after
it's good to see it.
Let me just finish. So right after this, I made a beeline out to the main entrance, hoping to ambush some MPs coming out. Not many did, but I did happen to talk to Aaron O'Toole. And,
good.
Aaron O'Toole has always been a good friend of ours. We've worked with him in the past. I remember even in our grading system way back when, we gave him a very high mark in terms of defending gun rights, and I don't think that's changed. And he came up to me and said, "Charlie, what's going on?" I'm going, "Well, I'm very disappointed in just what happened." He goes, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, this liberal minority government has basically declared war on law-abiding citizens." And he goes, "Well, what are we going to do about this?" And he goes, "Well, and I broached this to him. I said, "We need your help, right? We have a strategy in place that I'm not going to reveal on air. It'll be rolled out as we go. But he is very much wanting to help us. So I'm hoping that was a sincere invitation.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. Aaron's been very good. I mean, I've met with Aaron before. He's been very solid. He understands the issue, and he's part of a team of MPs out there who are in the Conservative caucus who do get this. We have some good friends. Senator Plett's now chair of the Conservative caucus in the Senate, and he's a good supporter of freedom and rights and liberties and all of that. He'll certainly back us. The thing is, we got a bunch out there that we need to bring around, and that's the job for every member to go and contact their members of parliament, whoever, whatever stripe, and get them on side.
Sheldon, you couldn't have said it better. This is do or die. They're not kidding.
They're not.
They are
They're
coming
not kidding.
for everything, right? This is a slippery slope, and it's very slippery. It's going to go down hard and fast if they get their way, and we're going to be struggling. I don't think it's going to be a slam dunk for them, but there's going to be all kinds of impediments in the way. But if we do not get the people that have guns to get directly involved, at least send money, to the NFA and help us fight their battle, all will be lost very soon.
Well, and that's just it, because this isn't about Charles Zatch going to Ottawa and talking to MPs. This isn't about Sheldon Clare doing the same, or going to the UN and railing against the tyrants there, or about Robert Bracken showing up every weekend and working, or any of the rest of us. It's about all of our members out there, all of the firearms owners in this whole country getting involved politically, because I'll tell you right now, if we don't get involved politically, we are done. And I mean, we are really done. These guys want our stuff. They think they can pull a New Zealand on this. Well, I think they're going to find out that Canadian firearms owners are not going to cave. People are not going to give up their guns willingly. This is not that kind of a population. This is a population that worked very hard to build the country. This is a population that had built wealth to go and buy these things, to engage in this leisure activity of recreational shooting and firearms ownership. This is a group of people who value the rights of property ownership, the rights of self-defense, and they are the best kind of citizens you'd ever want. And they're being directly attacked. They're being defamed. They're being vilified. And I mean, we're looking at some options here. We've got to, like you said, you don't want to reveal everything out in the air, but we've got some strategies we're considering for legal action. We have some strategies that need to be employed for political action, because really political action is where we're going to win this.
Absolutely.
That's the key. Legal action is also going to have to be a part of that fork. And I think that they'll find that there's going to be a tremendous amount of civil disobedience to any kind of attempt to take away people's stuff. There's just no way that this is going to be acceptable. I just shudder to think of who would be the willing participant in going around door to door to be coming and seizing any responsible citizen's firearms, any Canadian veteran who collects guns, or a former police officer as a firearms collector. There are teachers, doctors, lawyers, people of all walks of life, of all backgrounds, all gender orientations, who own firearms and enjoy them responsibly. And they are being vilified by this government in their throne speech and in previous comments. And it's not okay. Not at all. We don't accept it, and we're not going to compromise with these people about this one little bit. We want this Firearms Act reviewed. We want a lot of it repealed. We've had gun control law after gun control after gun control law after Polytechnique, which was mentioned in the throne speech as well, and none of those laws have been able to live up to their false promises, because, quite simply, gun control does not stop bad people from doing bad things. It's the fundamental lie. So good on you there, Charles, for being there to be an eyewitness to this farce of history that you saw today in the throne speech. It's embarrassing. You see these movements all around the country where people have said they had enough. And I mean, I've always been proud to be a Canadian. I've always been a very loyal, steadfast Canadian. But things like this make me ashamed.
And there's a lot to be ashamed of. I remember watching in the Parliament today, my own MP, dear Pam Damoff. Okay, we all know that she had a hand in 671, and she's very proud of the so-called measures that she brought in. I don't know if I told the story before. I tried to educate her on her Facebook page, and she banned me 3 times. Okay, so,
Yeah.
and we all know
I
the
remember that.
quote that she's known for, right? She said, well, I've heard a lot about law-abiding firearms owners until they're not. Now I understand what she meant.
Yep.
We're law-abiding until the government criminalizes us.
That's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely true.
Yep. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, Pam Vandenhoff there is really working against good people who probably some of them would be inclined to vote Liberal if this wasn't an issue.
You know, I had a discussion with somebody in the gallery about representative democracy that we're supposed to be in, and I gave that example about Pam. I mean, I'm her constituent in her constituency. I'm not Liberal.
No.
She knows I'm conservative. She knows that I ran, a campaign against her with Sean Weir. And yet, I've been trying to get an audience with her for months. I've called her, emailed her, texted her. I've even slipped a CFJ under her door in her office with my card in it, pleading with her to call me.
Not interested.
Ignore me, her own constituent. That's not representation. Sorry.
No, that's clearly not.
But of course, we know the reasons that they do this. We're the hated minority. We're the people whom they rail against because of the false sense of nationality and the no engraved Second Amendment or a clause. But we have to realize, as Randy Kuntz said in 2012 at our AGM, C-68 was brought in by a small encapsulated minority of people. And you could actually extend that to any anti-gun legislation. We are a much larger minority than them, but we're not as well plugged in. And we've been hammering at that for decades and providing people with the tools. This will be the numbers game. And that's a big source of frustration as well, as we all know.
That's right, Randy. I was talking to Gary Kangas from out Victoria way just the other day, and Gary, he said to me, he said, they're defaming and attacking 8% of the population, and that's just licensed firearms owners. Not to mention all of those decent people out there who've never understood they needed a license or ever bothered to get one. It's a significant chunk of the population, and it's a huge chunk of the voting population, because it's 8% of the whole numbers, and that includes people, of course, who are not at voting age. So when you start adding in that this is a chunk of the voting population, if this group could get mobilized and start working on this, well, it'll make a difference.
But it's a chunk that's spread across the country. It's not, if we had more of that concentrated in the so-called 905 area, and at least more gun owners in Quebec who are activists. And
there are more gun owners in Toronto than there probably are in all of New Brunswick.
Exactly.
And I think people.
But they won't stand up for themselves. But they won't stand up for themselves.
Not yet.
Not yet.
They're afraid
they will.
I had this discussion with somebody in the gallery, and they were saying, "Oh well, the 905, the Liberal stronghold. I mean, there's no real guns there." I'm going, buddy, let me correct you. I can send you stats if you want. That's where most of the guns in Canada are. Okay. Right now they're in their closet, holding tightly onto their AR-15s, hoping the boogeyman goes away. But when that door opens up, it's not going to be nice, right?
Nope.
So I plead with people.
The 37 and 38 rebellions were right in the heart of those areas, weren't they?
Well, Sheldon, you remember the mass protest that went on, in front of Parliament Hill a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
When the people are pushed to the wall like they were back then, they rose up and they backed off. That was supposed to be civil disarmament complete. They backed off, and now they invoked an incremental one. This is a giant leap in their incremental civil disarmament plan, but it's still the end game. So I plead with everybody out there, you know what, if you don't do something now, you'll only have yourself to blame for what doesn't happen in the future. And that means, and what's not going to happen is your gun's not going to go bang because you don't have a gun to shoot with.
That's right. And I don't think people can sit there complacently and think, well, they just want that particular firearm or this firearm, and think, well, they don't want my shotgun or my hunting rifle. I can assure you, they want all of them.
This is just the start.
Shotgun. They want your hunting rifle. They'll call your shotgun a trench broom, and your rifle will become a sniper rifle. And the next thing you know, that'll be the next target when this next set of gun control foolishness fails again, like it always does, because it can't do what it claims it's going to do. It never will.
That's it.
But they're still getting away with it. This has been going on for decades.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that there is such a thing as bad social policy, which basically leads to bad laws. And of course, we've talked about this before. Bad laws eventually lead to distrust of the government and distrust of security forces, degrades the faith in the rule of law. And ultimately, if it's a righteous thing and people feel that they're being persecuted, they will resist and ultimately disobey. And you know what? That is a moral obligation in a democracy. That's the way it's supposed to work. I don't want to go there. I don't want our country go there. I don't want to see anybody get hurt as a result. But they're leaving us not much choice in the end here.
Well, they're really pushing us into a corner, Charles. I think you're right. And I saw Larry's comment here a minute ago that firearms owners really should go out there and buy firearms, buy ammunition, support their local businesses.
Exactly.
They absolutely should. Myself, I recently bought a couple of AR-15s just to add to whatever else I already own.
Well, Rick or Jordan just sold me a nice new Glock. Jordan, is it in yet?
It's coming. It's there. It's just waiting for the transfer.
Very good. That's my freedom pistol, as I put it.
And we're seeing a lot of pressure being put on clubs and on transfers nowadays too. I mean, out here in BC, we're seeing issues about lead mitigation coming up. We're seeing strictures being put on ranges. They're trying to say, well, your range doesn't meet no safety area specs anymore because we think bullets can leave the range and end up in these places. These are ranges with high berms and sidewalls that are designed under their own specs and approved under those specs. And I'm sorry, but I think that there is a bigger agenda here just to make firearms ownership generally more and more unpalatable, to make organized shooting clubs more and more under attack. And Robert, you saw that report. They're going around claiming gang members are visiting these shooting clubs and getting training there. And I mean, I'm sorry, that's outrageous. And we're not going to go policing who joins our shooting clubs. We can tell if somebody's a decent sort or not. Somebody's sketchy.
Precisely.
We don't want them in our club, but we're not the police. We're not running a police state organization here where we're going after everybody and demanding to see their papers, please, every time they join the club. We presume innocence until we have evidence of something else. And I mean, the drive for a socialist society that we're seeing out of this, a totalitarian socialism, is really offensive. And I'm just looking at history keeping to repeat itself again and again and again, and we just never learn. We've had successive, ridiculous, and unnecessary gun control regimes in this country for decades.
Yep.
They're always touted as being the latest, greatest thing, and they always just end up being another incremental step towards civil disarmament.
Yeah. And the European countries are experiencing the same thing. We've seen our reports from the WFSA and the lead issue, and it's all backdoor, and no one is being fooled. And yes, we've got more punitive regulations in Nova Scotia, and there is an unofficial report in the CFO's office that our CFO was told to close as many ranges as he could. It's we know what's going on. At least the people are paying attention and actively involved in this.
Yep. Anything they can do to try to cut our numbers back, that's what they want to try and pull. And I mean, it's one of the reasons in NFA that we're attacking on a broad front. Like, we're involved at lobbying at Ottawa. We encourage our members to be very active in their local community politics. Get involved with making sure you have good contacts in your city council. Make sure you have good contacts with your member of your National Assembly or your provincial parliament, your provincial legislature. Make sure that those people know who you are and they understand that those rights that you have are important. Be very, very careful when somebody says they want your province to opt in to controlling these laws, because I'll tell you, that's a slippery slope. A very slippery slope. We said there was a question. What are your thoughts on the mechanics of AR-15 confiscation? I'll tell you what the mechanics are going to be. Officers told, okay, you guys got to go and confiscate people's guns, and it'll be, I think I'm sick that day. None of these guys want to do that. They'd be crazy to start engaging in that. And I think what they're going to find out is that the resistance to this is going to be huge. It's going to be organized. It's going to be structured. But it'll also be spontaneous as Canadians across this country refuse to buy in and participate in this civil disarmament exercise that's being brought up because of a failure to deal with a very few people who are committing a large amount of crime.
You know, it's interesting. When I was in Toronto at City Council, when they were voting on the Board of Health recommendations to ban handguns and ask for, semi-automatic bans and whatnot, one of the councillors, Kristen Tam Wong, asked the city solicitor how a bylaw to ban handguns or to do that kind of thing would roll out. And she said, well, the cities can only do bylaws, so ultimately it would be a bylaw officer that would be on your door asking you for your firearms, right?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Well,
wow.
I can just see the bylaw officers. I mean, they're paid all right, but I can't see.
They aren't paid for that.
No. And you know what? I know police, a lot of police that live in my neighborhood, and I've talked to a lot of police. They are petrified of the situation, right? Things can go sideways really quickly, right? And they want to go home at night and kiss their babies and go to work the next day. They don't want to be in a position like this. No. On top of that, the police have already said that this is not going to work. So they're going to hoist this thing on them as well, and they're going to put their officers in jeopardy. You know what? The more I think about this, as much as it's one of the greatest threats we've ever faced out there, since 1995, it may be just a bunch of virtue signaling that's going to be watered down, and they're going to make excuses for it, and who knows what's going to happen with it. I don't know.
It has to be taken
I think it's a fight. Yeah, we have to take it seriously, and we have to fight it seriously.
Oh, this definitely is serious.
Absolutely.
We can't ignore this at all.
No. What are you hearing, Jordan? You're working in the industry a bit and man on the street stuff.
I'll tell you this: the dealers are kind of holding off a bit on ordering this year because they really don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know how you can stock all that product and then just have the government say, "Hey, you guys can't sell it," and we might get stuck with the bill.
I get it.
It's tough, right? So all ends are getting the pressure from the government on this.
Well, I mean, I look at it as this from the position of someone who's I've been a competitive shooter. I've been a collector since I was like 18. I've hunted and I'm a hunter safety examiner. I have all kinds of firearms, and I am not up for having the government tell me they're going to take them away or buy them back. I'm sorry. I didn't buy them from you. I'm not interested in selling them. And so you're not buying anything back from me at some sort of ridiculously low cut rate cost. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to be willing to part with my stuff. And I've talked to a lot of other people who feel exactly the same way. And I know there are people out there listening to us right now who think the same, and they're looking for direction from us. And I'm here to say that this is not something they're going to get cooperation from the firearms community about. Not a bit.
Sheldon, there's a good point here that we talked about before. The whole premise of this of this gun ban is aimed at non-hunters. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's a divide and conquer tactic.
It is, but here's the thing, right? They think that the large majority of shooters out there are hunters. And we're finding out now, because there's stats out there that show that sport shooters are the ones that drive the economy. They're spending billions of dollars on bullets and gun range fees and guns and everything else in a peaceful manner. They're the ones that they're focusing on. They don't know that they're doing that because they thought there was less of them. And I think the backlash is going to be more than they thought it was going to be.
Oh, I think the backlash has not even begun. I think there's a huge number of firearms out there who are I've been waiting to see what's going on. Some of them probably even voted Liberal or NDP in the last election, or maybe Green, and as well as Conservative, because firearms ownership crosses a lot of party lines. However, they've made this a wedge issue, and they're pushing everybody to be much more unified. I remember when I used to go to dinners and talk to people, and they would say, "Oh, I don't care if they make you give up your handguns or make you give up this rifle or that firearm or whatever. That doesn't matter to me because I'm still going to be able to go duck hunting." Well, I'm sorry, that's not the case. Like I duck hunt. I hunt big game. I sport shoot. I was an IPSC RO for a while when I did that stuff. And I look at this and I go, it's all the same thing. And we better really fight this, and we better fight it hard. And you see, there's some really good comments people are putting out, and I mean, one of the things about the media, we had one of our guys was supposed to be interviewed tomorrow by CBC Radio on a live program. And he checked in with them today, and he found out, no, we're not going to talk to you because we've got a couple of anti-gun folks we're going to talk to. That's the message we're more interested in. So, yeah, we don't need you anymore. So, they've been bought and paid for, these guys, right? The Liberal Party, Trudeau, threw a whole bunch of money at various favored media just before the election, and this is paying off for them. And you see story after story now coming out there, being rolled out to try to present and vilify us, and it's not okay. So you need to start writing letters to your local papers, get active on social media, and promote the positive attributes of firearms ownership, and make it really clear to people that you are not willing to give up your property because of some fantasy by a bunch of snowflakes who think they're going to change the world, because it isn't going to happen. Yeah, you got to hold it higher, perspective.
Yeah, as always, the historical perspective reigns supreme, whether on any particular topic, and that's just missing. Oh, good shot. And it's just missing in today's narrative. In fact, some people think gun control began with the École Polytechnique, and the answer is no. Modern gun control, ignoring everything since Confederation, modern gun control you can at least trace back to 1969 and Pierre Trudeau's omnibus bill C-150, and everything now has pretty much come from there.
Yep.
I just wanted to say one time about the media. We've all had run-ins. I've been doing this for a while, and I've been challenging media. I remember one in particular that kind of underscores what I'm going to say. It was from the Red Star, the Toronto Red Star.
Yeah.
This woman had come out with some totally misleading article about guns, omitted things, twisted things. So I called it. This was actually a time when they published their telephone numbers and you could get a hold of the reporter. They don't do that anymore. They don't want to talk. Okay.
Oh, no.
So I talked to her and I said, I pointed out exactly where she was wrong and everything else. And I said, how can you print such a lie? It's basically misinformation. And goes, well, that's my opinion. And my editor okayed it. I know. And I said, that's fine. It wasn't an opinion piece. You wrote it as some kind of fact, right? You're misleading people with your opinion that you're not labeling as an opinion. So the media, they are ideologically in bed with the liberals. They're left, if not communist, right? This money that they got, right, was not to sort of make them more like the liberal agenda better. They already like the agenda. The problem is they're withering on the vine because nobody's reading their propaganda anymore. So this is nothing more than supply management, right, from the state.
Good one.
Yeah, it's
okay.
really shocking. Jordan, did you have anything to add?
Go out and buy your AR-15s. Go out and buy your handguns. Show the government, give the government a message.
Buy lots of parts, accessories, ammo.
That's right, and ammo, lots of ammo.
You know, let's flood the offices with some more letters, and let's make some phone calls, leave some voicemails, show them that we're not happy.
Support your local and support your local firearms club, support your local firearms businesses, and support your own online businesses as well. Let's get that money out there and make sure that we're spending it and showing a good faith in our own ability to beat this. We got to stand up for ourselves, because I'll tell you, our friends are few and far between, and we're working to build them.
Also, if you have friends and families that is not part of the gun community, educate them so they know what's going on. Try to let them see our side and how we're not the problem. It's the criminals that are the problem, not law-abiding citizens.
There's 2.2 million licensed firearms owners in this country, and it's imperative that they start standing up. If even 10% of them would stand up and get active, we'd have this beat. So that's what we need to have happen.
Precisely, and we've been saying that for years. The silent majority who won't stand up and who will believe us stand with most of what we say. They might not stand with everything, but certainly they'll stand with a lot of it, and we can bring them along. It just that's an endless frustration, it seems.
Yeah.
Just imagine
giving up our guns does not stop bad people from doing bad things. It never has, and it never will.
No, but
just
imagine if that 2.3 million people say join the NFA, right? We would be a driving force. These vacillating blowhards in Parliament over there, they would be begging us to anoint them even to become a candidate. We could be a driving force in this country.
If 10% of them joined the NFA, we'd be the biggest political organization in the country.
Powers and numbers.
And we can't belabor the point that this is a do or die situation. We either get help now and help ourselves, or we go dark.
Well, here's an idea. If anybody has any really good mailing lists out there that they want to send us, I'd be happy to take them and use them. We collect mailing lists. We're happy to use them all the time. And people keep sending us little ones and big ones, and we're happy to use them. So please keep doing that. That's really helpful for us.
And we're looking for field officers, right? So we need the boots on the ground to get the message out to the local people in their areas. So if you're interested and you're motivated now to do something, and if you're of a like mind, join us.
I just saw Jeffrey about sending an email. I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt, Robert. Jeffrey said he's going to send an email to Blair and Trudeau and those guys, and that's great. But emails are easy to delete. Way better is to handwrite a letter.
Well, and half the time
handwrite a letter, print it out, and you mail that with free postage to those guys, and make a copy and give it to the critic. And pass that on, because we need that stuff. Emails, they count as one mad person, but a letter is a multiplier. When somebody starts handwriting letters, they know people are angry. So Jeffrey, I hope you'll send a written letter.
Half the time the backbenchers are checking out the emails anyway, so your MP is not seeing those emails.
No, but they will read them. They will read them. I've been in their offices when they've opened and read the mail, and they don't get a lot of those letters anymore. Yeah, that's right, Ken. They are going to come after those hunting rifles and shotguns next. They are. That is absolutely what's going on. It'll be trench brooms and sniper rifles is what they'll start calling. The language is already being prepared by these folks.
Take a look at this. This is a military assault rifle.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. What didn't start off as a military application, but on the other point, it's going to make, if you're if you're having trouble finding field officers, find people who are already politically involved, turn them into field officers.
Yeah.
And the political point of this, I just want to underscore that we are now actually in local EDA, Electoral District Association, recruiting mode. They're looking for new directors to reconstitute their boards. Jump on, right?
Get involved.
Exactly. This is the way you get access to the MP or at least the candidate, and you get become part of the network. You can do a lot of good there just by attending, that meeting once a month. You put in as much as you want or a lot, right? It's like anything else, but you'll be there and you'll be representing the gun people.
Yeah, this world, this issue, this country is all run by people who show up.
Absolutely.
And we've been showing up, and some of you have been showing up too, and thank you for that. But we need more people to show up. We need more help. We need more resources to be able to keep doing the good work we're doing, to send guys like Charles off to Ottawa and Montreal and wherever else, Toronto City Council, wherever else he needs to go to get our message across. Robert for his trips all over the Maritimes to try to make sure that the word is spread out there. And the rest of us. I mean, it takes a fair bit of effort to be connected with our international allies, our national allies and organizations, and to share that information. I mean, the stuff on lead is going on all over the place right now, and that's becoming a big issue. It's blown up out of proportion, and it's not really about lead. It's about banning firearms. It's about stopping shooting. It's about eliminating interest in shooting activities by making it more and more onerous, by labeling it as dangerous, and it's very, very clear what's going on.
Jordan, how much time do we have left?
We can go on all night as long as we got viewers.
Okay.
Well, I think our viewers probably need to understand that, like, I'm in Prince George, British Columbia, and where I am, it's heading up to 7:00 in the evening. Charlie's in Montreal, and Robert, where you're in Lower Rubber Boot somewhere. Where are you at?
I'm in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. It's 10:46 p.m.
Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. So this is really an across the country little chat we're having here, with a quick survey from really coast to coast and in between about all these issues that matter so deeply to so many Canadians. And I think this is a really critical time for people who've been sitting on the fence or wondering, oh, should I give up my guns, or should I just keep my head down? Well, if you keep your head down, it's easier to chop it off, frankly. And so you need to get your head up, stand proud, and look those guys in the eye and say, no, you cannot do this to me.
Amen, brother.
Yep. I mean, hey, I've got my head sticking up. I've been happy to be a target for years. I mean, I can show you all the knife wounds in my back here. Just a second. I got a clean shirt here. You'd see the points sticking out. Yeah. Hey, there's a New Brunswicker there for you, Robert.
Bonsoir.
Bienvenue. And yeah, we've really got to step up our game. And I mean, we see activity with the Bloc. The Bloc is talking about supporting some of this stuff. The NDP is talking about, hey, Jeffrey, we're seeing a lot of different talk from these political parties. And I'm telling you guys, you've got to talk to these MPs, whether you think they're going to help you or not. They need to hear the message over and over and over again. This is a national situation that we, as Canadians, are very concerned with. We're not putting up with this, and we've got to say no. Say no to Mr. Trudeau. Say no to his no mandate gun ban plan.
What's interesting, Sheldon, is that what you said before was probably true. A lot of the hunters out there, I don't have an AR-15, I don't have a pistol. This is not my problem, right? What's interesting now is that these hunting groups are now approaching us.
Yes.
Because they're
we've had some good contacts.
Right?
Yeah.
I just talked to one of the largest hunting groups in Canada, one of the oldest ones, right? And they've been with the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters for 30 years. And they're exasperated because they talk, but as the person said, that's all they do, right? They don't do anything else. Well, of course they wouldn't, because we know that the OHAA, or what is it, OFAH, is government funded. So, you know, they'll take a little nip at the hand that feeds them, but certainly won't bite it. So we are different. We are fully funded by members, and we can't be bought.
No, that's what they really hate about us. And I mean, they've certainly put overtures out to try to bribe and make us go away. I've certainly had pressure on me from time to time to, you know, Sheldon, you know, maybe we get rid of you, you know, you won't make so much noise and you won't cause us so much trouble. And I think there were, you know, there's a lot of those folks out there. This question about straw purchasing.
That's a great one.
Yeah, Charlie, take that.
Okay,
You know,
so that's very timely. Our good friend Dennis Young, as we know, he's a freedom of information expert. He's on our board as a director, right? So way back when Bill Blair said that, oh yes, you know, it's the law-abiding people out there that are buying guns and giving them to criminals. And he said that as a fact. Well, our good friend Dennis did a freedom of information request against the RCMP, and their reply was that they don't even follow those kind of stats. They have no information on that at all. So where did Bill get this information from? I'll answer the question. It was a lie.
Yeah.
Well, he's a renowned constitutional liar, Charles. I remember in the 2014 Faces of NFA video, you talked about the 2010 G20 summit and Bill Blair's pronouncement that there was a 15 or 30 foot security zone away from the fence, and he subsequently admitted he lied about it. If you look up the definition of institutional liar, you'll see a picture of Bill Blair.
He's a police state agent, and you're right. You know what? 15 years ago, I was just your average IT support guy, moose hunter in the fall, duck hunter, etc., and what he did to Toronto, the good people of Toronto, which culminated, and as I think it was the Attorney General said, or no, it was, I forget who it was now. They said it was the greatest breach of civil liberty in Canada's history, because between him and the Premier at the time, McGuinty, right, they dusted off an old War Measures Act bylaw that protected the government buildings, created a state within Toronto, and then made up laws as they went along, and they were never held accountable.
Yeah, Vatican City.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm really pleased to see a lot of viewers from la belle province de Québec. Bienvenue, mes amis. And c'est très important pour nous discuter le gouvernement à Québec et aussi au Canada pour les armes à feu. Yeah, it's really important that our Quebec friends engage out there as well. There are more hunters and less firearms owners in Quebec than in any other province. It's the biggest population.
And my hat's off to the people of Quebec, the law-abiding gun owners in Quebec, for resisting the new long gun registry. 90% civil disobedience.
Yeah, good on you guys.
Right, you are the model.
Yeah, it's shameful that good people have been put into a position where they're losing respect for law and order, because that's what's happening here. It isn't anything else.
Yes, and for the people in Quebec, in the upcoming weeks, we are going to have both our Quebec directors, and they will be doing their own show for you guys. So stay tuned and watch for that.
Yeah, that should be very good. We need to hear from our lawyer Guy Laverne. I mean, we tried to get to the Supreme Court on the Quebec Registry. The court wouldn't listen to us. We'll have to get political in Quebec, and that's what our folks need to do. There is start picking members for the National Assembly that understand what rights and freedoms are about, and aren't going to just be kowtowing to what they think the latest snowflake sale is going to be best for them. We're not building snowmen, you know.
Oh, just on that note.
We've seen lots of snowflakes in this country. We don't need to have them in political positions.
On that note, Sheldon, the MNA, the Quebec National Assembly, during the last provincial election in Quebec, it was very shameful. I mean, the PCs, the Conservative Party in Quebec has had trouble for decades, but it was very shameful that not only did they not elect even one PC and MNA, and they had a few good candidates, but the Quebec Solidaire increased from 5 to 10 seats. And as Manon Mast admitted, she openly, defiantly said that they're Marxists.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow,
It's shocking.
head shake home.
It's shocking what's happening in this country, and I think it's time that the Canadians started to stand up for themselves and take it back. And I mean, we've got good people all over this country, people on Aboriginal reserves who understand about firearms and their rights and have stood up and protected them, and think they can ignore this. But I'm telling you, none of us can ignore this, because we are not going to be exempted. We're not going to be protected just because we're a hunter or whatever else. You know, Rob, I'm concerned about the government of Alberta's position. I can see the point about Alberta supporting firearms owners. They're talking about opting into management of the Firearms Act. I don't think that's actually going to help firearms owners. There's some divergent opinions on that. And I think they're trying to do what they think would help, but I don't think it will. I think that it's a mistake, because what you end up having is a patchwork of different enforcement styles. Ask the people of Quebec what it's like to live under a province that has an opt-in government that has their own interpretation.
Yeah, but do you remember Guy Lavert's email?
There was an ND. Wasn't that long ago. There was an NDP government in Alberta, and how do you think they'd run things if that changed again? I think if you're going to have any rules, there has to be a consistent system, because otherwise, it isn't going to be very helpful.
Just wait till the patchwork comes along with the cities. You're going to have one patchwork.
That'll be a nightmare.
That's definitely going to be a nightmare.
Oh, really? And it's not going to do anything anyway, right? I mean, like you said, online sales of gun ammo is going to skyrocket. And if I happen to be, say, rolling through Toronto on the 401, going to a gun range in Oshawa, right? Do I have to, check in at some kind of a whatever to get inspected, or
it's fascism? Yeah, and I think Alberta has recognized one good thing about this, and that does help firearms owners, and that is they're saying that they passed that motion about supporting firearms owners, because they're not going to let the cities just be able to go ahead and do that on their own, because the cities are creations of the province. They get their authority from that. And I think Robert was going to jump in on that too, but it's not it's sufficient to just lobby your city councils. You need to talk to the province about this stuff as well, because all of a sudden there's all these layers. The division of powers in sections 91 and 92 of the British North America Act are running into some collision parts again, where there's overlap between provincial and federal powers. And we're going to be on that. And we're looking for constitutional problems with anything these guys pull on us. And we think there are some, but we also think we're being defamed. We're being vilified. It's not right. It's not okay. And it should never have happened. And this is not okay what they think they're going to do to us. We're not going to let them.
I was talking to Peter O'Toole about that actual point about
Aaron O'Toole.
Aaron, I was going to say.
Yeah, it's not Peter O'Toole. Aaron O'Toole. And I said, how can they possibly do this without a constitutional amendment to download, federal powers to a municipality? And he just kind of laughed at me and goes, the Liberals will try everything. And we've seen the litany, and the legacy of things that they've done that's gone sideways, if not illegal, right? So just because, it doesn't seem that they can do it, they will try. And and if somebody doesn't challenge them, like us or somebody else, it'll go.
I see Joe's chimed in. Joe's one of our directors from La Belle Provence. Yeah, detouring around Toronto or Montreal to avoid getting arrested on a hunting trip. Yeah, it's not a laughable concern. He's right.
Yes,
this is the kind of problem that is going to happen. We've already seen hunters stopped at roadblocks by misinformed law enforcement officers who thought that they could not have firearms transported in a particular way, and they were inventing ridiculous strictures for that. Yeah. So this isn't
on a tangential note. It reminds me of driving through the States. in one or two where I didn't have reciprocity with concealed carry, and not only did I box up my firearm and lock in the truck, I didn't stop in that state. I drove through Massachusetts, except for a fuel stop. I drove through Connecticut. When I got into Pennsylvania, I didn't have to do that. In fact, I could carry. That's so that's a bit, that's sort of a tangential story in the U.S. with patchwork legislation. But yes, that's it's frighteningly amusing, or amusingly frightening. I don't know what you'd call it. But it is bad.
It is bad, and I think it's reasonable for us to have a fundamental review of the Firearms Act and look at it and say, what exactly here has value and what does not? What actually works or could be seen as possibly working, and what does not? And let's look at the peer-reviewed evidence. Let's look at some steps, and let's just see. And I think the problem is, what it shows is that the crime rates actually aren't affected by any of this. That's what Kaylin Langman's research shows us.
Yes.
That's what Gary Mauser's research shows us. That's what Dr. John Lott's research shows us from the States. So therefore, that means that, gosh, people could have firearms, and this is uncomfortable for the snowflakes. They
But
want
just
to
to reiterate, Sheldon, from my perspective, I'm the one director who was actually anti-gun years ago during the 80s and 90s for about 10 to 15 years. And my experience, and many others, it was a combination of ignorance and a false sense of nationality. And you can't underestimate the false sense of nationality.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think Jeffrey's point, we need an ombudsman in Parliament. Well, an ombudsman isn't what we need. What we need is people who can stand up and speak for us and vote. And we have some good, solid political allies there. I think of Senator Plett. I think that of a lot of the Conservative caucus are good friends. Mark Potvin-Roy is asking, do you think the government will use violence to enforce the ban? Well, violence is one of the tools of the state, and I shudder to think what they will do on this. But I can tell you, there are an awful lot of police officers who want nothing whatsoever to do with this. They're good people. They're firearms owners themselves in many respects. And I'll tell you, it's crazy. Defining an assault rifle? Well, I think we all know they mean anything semi-automatic, don't we, friends and neighbors? They're looking at the Australian model.
That looks bad.
They're looking at the New Zealand model. Hell, when Kim Campbell tried to pull this on us, she just took the Guns and Ammo magazine, took all the pictures of anything that looked scary, and tried to prohibit it. So, these guys don't know what they're doing. Well, they know what they're doing. They know what they want.
The end game is full civil disarmament.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter. They try to take where they can, when they can, when the time is right. So that's the end game. Don't fool yourself.
I feel they're going to follow the New Zealand model. So if you guys want, check on the internet and look to see what's going on there. They're even banning the 870 shotgun because they say it was police and military.
Yep.
That's a pump. That's a pump action.
The Australian model is what they're looking at, right? Ban the pumps, ban the semis, get rid of the levers. This is not a list that ends. I told people before, when I was in Ottawa about I'm thinking it's got to be about 8 or 10 years ago. I was going to a meeting with the public safety minister, and there was two other guys in the hallway out waiting to meet with him too. We're all sitting in the lobby, if you like, and we're all nicely dressed, wearing our blazers, and these guys had some file folders, and I had my file folders, and we got to chatting. We're all clean-cut young guys, and they said, "Well, what are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to meet with the minister about firearms matters." And he goes, "Oh, so are we." And I went, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, we're with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Firearms Forensic Lab, and we're here to talk about things we think should be banned." And he said, "What do you hear? What do you hear about?" I said, "Well, I'm here to make sure they don't listen to you." So we exchanged cards and pleasantries, and then everybody was kind of quiet after that.
I just want to.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Jump back.
Just jumping on that comment. Anything police or military, even if it's just a pump, they'll say, "Well, law enforcement are using that. Why do you need it?" And they'll come up with any excuse, and that's one you can just think of right off the cuff, and they'll do it.
Yep. Well, that's the language. It's all buzzwords.
I just want to jump back to one of our viewers, questions about the state using violence to enforce these civil disarmament rules. I have to remind everybody that they are already using violence. Personally, I just had a situation last year where a good friend of mine, he had a son that, was going through some mental issues. He came home, he was an adult, and he barricaded himself in his bedroom. And the mother, of course, got very concerned that he was going to harm himself. So they called the ambulance, the paramedics, to help their son. They're waiting and waiting and waiting. All of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. Guess who it was?
The police.
It was the SWAT team. And on his driveway was the Halton six-wheel tank. Okay? So they said, "Where's the guns?" And we're going, and he was saying, my son is in trouble here. What do you mean the guns? He's a hunter. He's got a hunting rifle, right? But from the registry, they knew that he had guns, and they said, "There's no paramedics coming in here until we clear the place of guns." So the violence is going on, right? It may not be physical, but my friend, I can tell you, was emotionally upset afterwards, right? They came in willy-nilly, just basically bowled everything over. They more or less forced the door open, found the guns, took everything away. He finally got the guns back, but he was terrorized.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, lots of stuff's getting banned. Anyway, we probably should wrap this up. It's getting late for you out there, Robert and Charles, and I know I've got things I've got to get done tonight too.
I got some reading.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Make sure everybody goes to our website, nfa.ca, take out a membership, make a donation, do what you can to help the cause, and take personal action in order to stop what is going on. Talk to your member of parliament. Talk to your member of the legislative or national assembly, and let's change this together. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great night.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Shoot straight.
Thanks, Noel.